think we're live, Danica.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to greet you all at the GRLI Forum, our friends, in fact, I should say dear friends from Russia and from the rest of the world, the ones who are participating at the GRLI Forum. I always like to tell that I knew personally Mr. Gaidar. He was liking to come to Bled Island, where our school is situated, for the vacation, and then he always came for a coffee, and we had a great conversation about politics mostly. And so here I am today to lead the session, The Evolution of Crime, Societal Impact and Business School's third mission, because we imagine that this business school have more than just one mission. And we are here from different parts of the world, from different parts of the, having different, we are representing different organizations. And my name is Danica Purg. I'm president of CEEMAN and the president of Bled School of Management in Slovenia. And with me together, they are Matthias Falkenstein, chair of the Supervisory Board of the Positive Impact Rating, chair of the AASCB RME Board, Managing Director of SchoolMette, Louis Business School, Louis University in Rome. And of course, a person who was working already for some time also with EFMD and has quite an important international career in the field of education and management education. We have in us another forerunner and a very important person around the world now, John North, and he is executive director at globally responsible leadership initiative called GRLI or GRLI. It depends how you pronounce it. And he is the author of the EFMD global blog. And this GRLI had an important role, at least last 10, 15 years. I remember that we were always learning from him and learning with him together. Then we have with us Goran Milenković. He is academic director of executive MBA, Antwerp Management School, which is quite connected also with Russia and also with other countries having their MBA programs and other programs. And he is also, I know him very well from his former experience where he was an important businessman in a global company. And then we have Assylbek Kozhakhmetov. Assylbek Kozhakhmetov is president of Almaty Management University. We call it Almaty. And I have to say that Assylbek was also in the times that we were establishing first management schools in Central and Eastern Europe and in Central Asia. His school was the first one, and he was one of the founders of that first management school in Kazakhstan. He will be with us on not online, but he prepared a video, and so we shall be with him through the video. And then we have Evgeniya Pashkevich, Associate Dean, IBS Moscow, RANEPA. And I have to say that when Evgeniya showed up in the field of sustainability, started to deal with these issues at RANEPA and especially at IBS, then this school changed a lot for positive, especially for this field. I don't know other fields, Evgeniya, where you are active, but I know that you made a big difference, and all my compliments to you and RANEPA, which really is a great university, and IBS Moscow, a great management school. And then, of course, we shall also have Mette Morsing, the CEO of Prime, who also made a video, and this is what we shall do now. After I say still some introductory words of what is going on in our 1 hour long conversation. And when I say conversation, I really mean it. I hope that we shall have a conversation and talk a little bit and share with you all where we stand today with Prime. You will hear this from Mette, the most relevant person in this field. Then we shall of course give some experience, like Goran Milenković said that he would like to talk about his school and his MBA, what they are doing, Evgeniya also. So each of us will tell you something, where we stand, what we are doing, and what are our efforts, what do we plan in the future to do, to be more, what shall I say, useful and to make this society a better place. And so what we today plan to point out especially is that in more recent definitions of sustainability, we see extension of the 3 pillars, and that is environmental, social, and economic, to 5 pillars. And this is economic, social, environmental, as it was, and cultural and security aspects. And of course, greater attention is given to the issues that are or became more politically sensitive as human rights, civil society, democracy, transparency, the role of media, cybersecurity, political and business ethics, etc. And this certainly impacts education and research of universities and business schools. And since we are now very much, even in our associations, like in CEEMAN, we talk about relevant management education, in AASCB and EFMD about the education with real impact. Then we have even that WURI ranking, which is saying, real impact universities and having a new ranking. So I think that this is also what we should tackle today, because we believe that with ranking you can reach a lot to not only to motivate, but also to force a little bit the management school to have this great positive role and to become more active in the greater society. So I suggest that we start now to listen to Mette Morsing, the CEO of the Prime community. She is having an official function like program officer and head of principles of responsible management education Prime. So please, Mette, the floor is yours.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much to IBS Moscow RANEPA for inviting me here today to the GIDER Forum 2022 and to the particular session about Prime, Principles for Responsible Management Education. And thank you very much to President Sergei Miusedov and Professor and Associate Dean Evgeniya Pashkevich for inviting me here today to be part of the debate. I sincerely apologize that I will not be able to be with you live here today, but I am very pleased to provide a few comments and a few reflections about the development of Prime from 2007 until today. So back then, Prime was established after many discussions between a great number of dedicated business schools, professors and deans, and formally launched in New York at the UN Global Compact's session here in 2007 and endorsed by the then Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. Back in 2008, we started the SIP reports, the Sharing Information on Progress reports that we have successfully asked all our schools to commit to deliver and produce every second years to us and to yourselves, of course, as a source of inspiration for everybody else about the activities on responsible management education that each and every individual business school around the world is doing in the Prime community to advance our mission. In 2015, as we all know, the Sustainable Development Goals were following the Millennium Goals and made quite a remarkable new focus on the issue and the responsibility of leadership education to develop the future leaders for business towards the Sustainable Development Goals. And I'm proud to say that today, in 2022, there's more than 800 business schools as part of our network. And we are still a growing community, even in the middle of a global pandemic. Many new schools are joining us on an annual basis. Our focus has been for the past almost 2 years a new strategy where we focus on quality development in our chapter work, in our working groups, in our champion work, and also in our Prime Global Students Initiative. We are also focused on how we can grow our community. And I'm very proud to say that just last year in 2021, we established 6 new Prime regional chapters, and one of them being the one in the country here, Russia, namely the Prime chapter Eurasia. And that was with a great effort and support by Evgeniya Pashkevich, and also thank you very much for that. We also established new Prime chapters in Africa, in Iberia, in Poland, in Middle East, North Africa, and in ASEAN. And this was an effort that was supported by a number of deans all around the world to actually engage and support the important work by the help of the professors in their individual schools. We also established 2 new working groups, one on sustainable finance and one on business and human rights, led by dedicated professors as well, and a great number of professors from around the world in doing research, but also discussing how does this research on these topics become integrated into the curriculum in our business schools. We've come a long way as Prime since 2007 over the past 14 years. And I think it's fair to say that this has sort of emerged in, you could say, 3 phases. I think some of us old enough will remember the first phase, which is the phase about 20 years ago, when it was the individual business ethics professor located in a school, passionate about driving the responsible management agenda into the curriculum and into the classrooms. Usually this was an elective that the professor got or was offering and got a number of students interested in. I usually refer to the second phase, which happened about 10 years ago, a little bit depending on where we are in the world. But about 10 years ago, we saw the emergence of a number of research centers on sustainable development and on responsible management in business schools, in management schools around the world, led by a group, not just an individual, but usually a small group of dedicated faculty, professors who wanted to advance the agenda, who may have been lucky enough to get a research grant or a grant to advance the work in their school. Here, at this point in time, we also saw the emergence of a few core courses into the curriculum of responsible management, of business ethics, of sustainable development. The third and last phase, we could say, started maybe 5 years ago. Here, this was very much a phase that was characterized by engaging our colleagues in other disciplines than business ethics, or in, you could say, the more sort of sustainable development oriented type of disciplines. This was very much a period 5 years ago where we started to see how the agenda was emerging across disciplines, how our colleagues in accounting, our colleagues in marketing, our colleagues in operation management, our colleagues in finance started to engage systematically and seriously in these matters of sustainable development, addressing issues of global challenges globally and locally in the classroom with our students, and indeed also in research. So from the single professor in the classroom, the business ethics dedicated professor, to the centers, to the across disciplines, I think is one way of putting the development of the sustainable development area of responsible management over the past 2 decades, where and also during the period where Prime has existed. But we still have a long way to go. We still have a lot of work ahead of us and a lot of exciting work ahead of us. And I think the current focus that many of us have right now, the issue of how do we argue and how do we show our relevance as management schools in the world and locally, How do we show our societal impact on the community? How do we, as some would call it, sort of work with our third mission of business schools, our own organizational practices, our own waste management, our own way of accounting for our CO2 emissions, the way we have community outreach programs, the way we have extracurricular activities for our students organized and offered by us, but also by students and some of our stakeholders in the local communities. How do we make that happen, and how do we also account for that to show the relevance and to build even more of these activities? So we still have a lot of work to do ahead of us, and I'm thankful for GRLI 2022 to have a particular focus on the work ahead of us for principles for responsible management education locally and in the world. And I look very much forward to a debrief from your session and from the important areas and topics and challenges that you discussed in this particular session. I wish you a wonderful session at GRLI Forum 2022. Thank you very much.
Us all, and we were all in Moscow, you know, now. It was so very nice, spontaneous talk. So now we have a very special title, GRME, Getting Our Hands Dirty. And John Morse is the one who will tell us how you make this. John, please. We don't hear you, John. John, you are, yes.
Yes. Thank you very much, Danica, and it was also lovely to hear from Meta. So let me just begin by thanking IBS Moscow RANEPA and Dr. Evgeniya Pashkevich for initiating this. And my warm greetings to all the participants and contributors of this year's GRLI Forum. I'm speaking to you from the garden route on the southern tip of Africa, in South Africa. In the short time allotted to me today, I will share very briefly something about the GRLI and our relationship to the Principles for Responsible Management Education. I will then touch on the global context and condition with some of the implications that we see for responsible management education. And finally, share some ideas on how responsible management education might evolve in order to meet the needs of tomorrow. So firstly, some context with reference to our link to PRME. The Globally Responsible Leadership Initiative was initiated in 2002 by the European Foundation for Management Development. They held a meeting where the theme was global responsibility, and there was a consensus, especially in the wake of 9/11, that they need to take action on this vital issue. So we resulted as the first organized relationship between the United Nations and business schools through a MOU in 2003, and by 2005 had produced a founding call. Subsequently, the GRLI has played a central role in the development also of the principles and the establishment of the Principles of Responsible Management Education Prime. Until recently, I think 2019, we played a role on the steering committee of PRME. So we've had a relationship to this movement since the outset. Today, the GRLI exists as a global partnership of organizations, including a strategic partnership with EFMD, the AACSB, and more recently also the student network Oikos. But I think it would be useful, just for the purpose of this conversation, to say something about global responsibility and what we mean by it. It was Philippe de Wood, one of the key figures in our movement, that proposed more than a decade ago that we redefine the purpose of the company, and to do it as follows: the creation of economic and societal progress in a sustainable and globally responsible manner. So our emergent understanding of this notion of global responsibility is that it's integrative responsibility at three levels: to the self, or the individual, me; to the other, in other words, those around me, in my context, the we; and to the whole, in other words, all of us. And that, by that I include also the natural environment. So me, we, and all of us. And of course, that's a good starting point for thinking about our global context today. What we are facing has been described as a meta crisis. In a recent essay, the chess grandmaster and philosopher Jonathan Rowson described it as follows. He said there's a process of reckoning going on around the world. There's the pandemic, the palpability of our fragility, inequality and interdependence. There's a climate emergency, a broader crisis of civilizational purpose, and deeper socio-emotional, educational, epistemic, and spiritual features of our predicament. And this manifests as many flavors of a meta-crisis. Now, within the mix of that lies an unfortunate myth for business education, which we helped perpetuate, namely that infinite economic growth is desirable and indeed possible on a finite planet. So there's the big dilemma. The necessary 180-degree turn that is required will lead us to draw in question nearly everything that's been taught and researched in business schools. You might point to the SDGs as a redeeming agenda. However, when the world's businesses meet their sustainability goals as currently stated, we'll only be at the starting line of ensuring a future worth living for all people. What do we do about this? We have this meta crisis, but the measures that we have, even the SDGs, aren't necessarily easy to navigate and implement. I want to say firstly, we need to distinguish between PRME as an entity housed by the UN Global Compact and the PRME as a set of principles embraced by the wider management education ecosystem, regardless of whether you're a signatory or not. So I would like us to think about the evolution of responsible management education, whether it's in the context of PRME or more broadly, along the following lines. What we need is globally responsible action for change through education. And I've formulated it specifically in that way to form the following acronym, and it's just for the purpose of this conversation. Globally responsible action for change through education, GRACE, grace, because we need a lot of grace at this point in time. And it requires work under 3 pathways, and with that I will wrap up. First pathway, we need to proactively drive regeneration. So we need regenerative leadership and practice that helps restore the natural foundation of all economic and social activity. Secondly, we need to reorientate all the internal capabilities and functions of management education to serve the common good. So in other words, multi-stakeholder, issue-centered learning and research around the big challenges of the day. And thirdly, we need to prioritize relational innovation. In other words, advance peer-based, whole-person learning and much deeper collaboration from leaders and organizations who are prepared to work and lead beyond their ego or their logo in the case of institutions. So 3 pathways that I want to suggest: regenerative leadership and practice, reorienting our functions to serve the common good, and prioritizing relational innovation. I'll pause there. Thanks, Danica.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, John. Very interesting, like always, you know, a very broad view from your side. And now I would like to invite Matthias Falkenstein to talk about demonstrating the positive impact of management education in the world. Are we walking our talk?
Yes, thank you very much, Danica, and thank you, Guida Forum, for actually having us here. And it's a pleasure to come in, taking on right after John's remarks, and very, very important remarks on what actually needs to be done in order to tackle the different issues that we are facing currently in the world, societal, environmental, and socially. But I would like to turn the lens a little bit into the direction of where are we in management education today? Where are we in the business schools? And what is actually driving us? What is driving our own doing? What is setting this, the sails of business schools, in which direction they are going? And where do they see their responsibility? And what comes to that picture right away are accreditations and rankings. I think Danica, in her initial remarks, were very clear talking about AASCB, EFMDA organizations that are certainly in their own mission saying that they are wanting to drive quality management, quality assurance, and the purpose of management education at large. And part of that is, without any deny, the responsible management education, the ethics, responsibility, and sustainability. However, I think by today we all can say a lot is being done in business schools. What we see over the past 7, 8, or 10 years, especially following the economic crisis. However, we also can probably agree that it's not enough what's been done. It's very clear that the world is still in a very bad situation when it comes to the environment, to the economics, and many other parts. And there, business schools play a role. They are not, certainly not the ones that are only they're the ones that are responsible. They are not only the ones that are bringing the solution, but they have a share and they should take on their own agendas. And so looking at accreditations and rankings, we consider them as a big driver. And we see, especially when it comes to accreditations, that, for example, AASCB, but also EFMD have changed their standards. EFMD, in fact, were a front runner in 2013 when they came up with a new standard called the ERS standard number 9, Ethics, Responsibility, Sustainability. And that really was a big changer at that time. And also AASCB followed now with its new standard 9 that also looks on the impact of management education, the impact of business schools in the society. But what we also can see is the limits of accreditation here as a peer-to-peer reviewed process. What we can see is that there's a lack of a multi-stakeholder approach where accreditations, by including other stakeholders, would have a greater impact on business schools' agendas. What I would see, and what we have seen in our own research, is that we still see a lot of decoupling of what business schools do on one side and what they claim they do on the other side. And we do see that accreditation, international accreditations, national accreditations need to keep business schools more accountable on what they do. And we do believe that a multi-stakeholder approach involving students, involving employers, involving stakeholders from the society more in the accreditation process would certainly also help the schools to walk their talk and what they do. And here we see PRIME and GRLI coming in. Both are organizations that have a knowledge, that have expertise in their own organizations, that really can support the accreditations in actually assessing business schools and their agendas. But not only talking about the accreditations, including here the rankings is another important driver of management education. Rankings have not changed to the degree it's been expected so far. And we do believe that rankings also have to include further ethics, responsibility, sustainability in their rankings criteria and ranking standards. There's certainly at this point no real standard measurement in the rankings, and it has to change in the future. One very good example here is the positive impact rating. That has now taken on a student approach, taking on the student lens in rating business schools. And we also see here again, PRIME and GRLI, both in the forefront of actually helping rankings to change their standards and bringing in a degree of expertise and also knowledge in what and how rankings can do better. So to summarize here, I think we believe that PRIME is a fantastic driver here, and we do believe that in the collaboration between the different organizations, their business schools will find more guidance, more accountability in what they do and how they actually contribute to the well-being of society, environment, and beyond. I would like to finish here and look forward to discuss this further with all my colleagues here in this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matthias. I was thinking to put one question now, but I shall now firstly listen to Goran, and then I suggest that we are having 1 or 2 questions, and then we go further to Evgeniya and to Assylbek. And Evgeniya, like we agreed. So, Goran, The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Danica. Thank you very much to the GAIDA Forum and everybody who contributed so far and the organizers. It's a pleasure to be here. My take on this topic, or my contribution, will be more on a more specific exemplar basis of what we are actually doing, trying to follow prime principles and some of the other things that have already been mentioned. We really believe in that the universities and business schools in particular hold a special significance and responsibility in developing knowledge, values, and behavior of future responsible leaders, because that is basically what we are set up to do, and that should be our bread and butter. Now, our school, the Antwerp Management School, is part of Antwerp University, which is not a huge university in Belgium. It's one of the prime universities, but our business school is a medium-sized, small schools focusing only on executive education, so master and open executive education. And within that, I manage a program called the Executive MBA. It's a standard MBA that most schools offer nowadays. But we are quite fortunate in it that we've done a few things which may be of interest, or in order, basically in implementing some of the aspects of Prime and the other elements mentioned. Now, like I mentioned, our school has been around for about 60 years, and our program, or my program, has been around for the equal amount of time, because our school started with a general management program that later transformed into an executive master of business administration. In the meanwhile, of course, we have a cohort in Moscow, and thank you to IBS and RANEPA for that. And we have, of course, a collaboration and a cohort in Paris now with ESCA School of Management. So our approach to the topic that we are now discussing here has evolved with the times. And also what we have heard here, especially what Meta mentioned in the beginning, how the approach of the global education community has followed this process from individual professors being, pathfinders almost, then to actually having some research centers, and then taking it into actually all the subjects over time. We follow that process as well. And also now going forward, we actually are taking 2 additional steps. And those 2 additional steps relate, so going from a professor to a research center, or in this case, our chair and the supporting team, to making sure that all subjects incorporate certain themes related to this and devote significant teaching time to it. We have now taken the 2 additional steps, and one is that we actually are going out with our students in the field, and we have actually, following the positive impact project or initiative example, we have now implemented in our executive MBA a positive impact project, which is a regular feature of the curriculum with credits and grading and everything that goes with it. Now, our school has, in addition to that, also adopted quite a few years ago an approach to actually, like we've heard, not only talking about it, but living it. So 2 years ago, we moved into a new building that is based on a circular economy building. So I don't want to go into all the details, but basically everything from coffee cups down to how much we manage waste, to using these coffee cups to give it to a company that then turns it into, excuse it, toilet paper that we then get back free of charge. So we actually have closed the circle almost in that sense. Now, our school is, because of our involvement, has already been rated by the Positive Impact Initiative. We are what I think is called, correct me if I'm wrong, Matthias, a level 4 rating, which is called the Transformative School. So we are very happy that our students who rate us actually see us as a transformative school. Now, the MBA is, of course, a general management training for executives wanting to assume senior leadership positions. And in that sense, our program is not that different. Our cohort usually has 60 to 80 participants. The age group is between 35 and 45 years. we typically get 10 to 20 nationalities representing 20 to 30 industries, and about 40% of them are women. So, and all of them are, of course, successful. And what we really enjoy is the fact that over 80% of them are sponsored by their company to come and join the program, either in time committed or in even paying for the fees. So taking this group and actually getting them to understand it is different than just talking about it. You really have to make them learn through an experiential learning exercise. So it's almost like an action learning approach. So we do two things. We have reviewed our entire curriculum of the MBA and included literally topics related to ESG, CSR, and all the other elements that you have mentioned in all the major subjects. We've done a review recently, and we see that on an average year in the last 2 years, we get between 150 to 170 hours of teaching time inside other courses. So we do not have a course on CSR as such. However, we do invest over 150 hours of teaching time through cases, through courses, through exercises in topics such as finance, such as corporate planning, such as strategy, such as marketing and sales. So for example, in finance, we go into, as somebody already mentioned, finance, we go into management accounting, into activity-based costing, into balanced scorecards and things like that, and have exercises that basically touch the topic. But on top of that, every student has to do a positive impact project. And a positive impact project there are some guidelines of what it can be, but there is a jury, a mixed jury that actually evaluates, approves that it is a positive impact project, with the opportunity and the challenge of challenging the students to go into the environment, to go into the community, and to have a real societal impact. Now, what that basically means is that they do not go and do charity work. So we refuse projects that are just charitable effect. We actually want them to use their knowledge, their experience, not only what they've learned in the MBA, but what they bring, because all of them have 15, 20 years of experience in different fields. And how can they actually invest that into their communities? And I'll come back to that, what we understand by community, in having a greater, longer-term societal impact. There is a robust review process. At the end, all of them are graded and there is feedback, but they can be individual projects or they can be team projects. And we believe that the sort of, the responsibility is not a corporate one. Of course, there is a corporate element to it, but it's actually a personal one. So every personal leader has to have, not only in terms of subscribe to it, but actually behave it and live it, so to speak. So we actually...
Goran, you have slowly to bring it to the end.
So I'll give you just 2-3 examples. So one example was, and this is all examples out of the last 12 months. So one example is somebody wanted to actually get involved with people in prisons, wanting to assist them in transitioning from prison life, what happens afterwards and how they help. And of course, it started off and then COVID struck. And the student or the participant was actually working with the organization inside prisons that actually produce for others. So companies, etc. And all the contracts were canceled. So all of a sudden, the project metamorphosed into something where it wasn't about the prisoner itself, it was actually finding projects for people in prison to work. Another one was on sustainable agroforestry in southern India, where our students developed an e-learning and online platform. So there are a lot of practical examples, and we usually get 15 to 20 examples like that per year that really get them working in their communities and continue working in their communities after they finish the MBA program. So I'll leave it at that, and I look forward to an open discussion.
Thank you very much. We have still 20 minutes, and we have two speakers, and we would like to have conversation still. And John was suggesting that we are talking a little bit more about accreditation. I agree with that. I think that we shall have to reduce our conversation. I hope we shall have time for it on a little bit on accreditation, a little bit on the situation of the schools. Are they ready? Are they capable? Are they following this? Are they capable to cope with these challenges, this new, from 4 to 5 to this societal role, etc. That's that. And then the third one, I think it would be very good if at the end, each of us would give an advice to Prime how to develop further. So now, without a further ado, I shall give the floor to Assylbek, the video, because that video we couldn't cut and it's a little bit long. And then, of course, we wanted Evgeniya is still talking too. So please put the video of our friend Assylbek from Kazakhstan. We have a little bit more understanding with Kazakhstan at this situation, I mean, with Assylbek.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues and friends. I'm happy to see you all today healthy and safe, which has been especially important for us in the past few days in Almaty. Dear Danica, dear panelists and participants, I'm glad to present my observations on the responsible management education. I always stand for the fact that education is the main driver of development of a country. It is the driving force to create impact on societies. Particularly, emerging countries need responsible management education, so that sustainability and responsibility becomes the core to education, business, and daily life. Emerging countries need to have the right direction for the development. Sustainability and responsibility are not just taught models in a curriculum. It is the way of living and managing any organization. As Professor Evgeniya puts universities in the forefront in the triple helix model of innovation economy, we developed this idea in the sense that universities should be in the forefront in building national states. It is very important to bear in mind that the impact that management education makes is far beyond the success of a business schools and its stakeholders. It nurtures a generation of responsible citizens, which forms a responsible society in a country. Moreover, education is a solid foundation for building national states. This is particularly important for the emerging countries such as Kazakhstan or Central Asia and post-Soviet countries, where the tension between the old and new is very active. What universities can and should do is to build conscious civil society and give equitable and fair access to education, especially to socially vulnerable groups of society. For example, for the past 2 years, we ran the NGO Academy at Almaty, which has already provided workshops and trainings for 800 participants from 300 NGOs. We would like to deepen and enlarge this intention to the country level. Another role that universities play is in the building of the new institutions of civil society, in developing new cultural values, and in training and socializing people of new social era. This can be done via forming relevant recommendations for policymaking and implementation, solving existential problems, creating technological products, and producing new knowledge that can be adapted for economic, political, and social improvement. For example, a university should largely contribute to the production of countries' sustainable development reports, so that their voice is heard, valued, and actually implemented. The events of the past week in Kazakhstan or events in other countries like Belarus, Ukraine, and Kyrgyzstan show that it is of the utmost urgency to build such a society and to address all 5 pillars of sustainability: economic, social, environmental, cultural, and security aspects. The PRMEJohn chapters is a great tool to highlight the university's role in building the culture and, in a broader sense, in national emerging countries and nurturing their societies. We expect increasing universities' engagement and involvement into solving the social problems in different ways. For example, through applied research publications, upgrading the concept of lifelong learning for the 21st century, personal and teachers development programs, as well as through a wide range of third mission activities, volunteering, and charity. For rising societies, the core objectives of university are a creation of intellectual resources, increasing the quality of human capital, enlarging the degree of public trust and social capital, nurturing proactivity and culture, and providing wide access of high quality higher education. In this capacity, universities act as a backbone organization and a driving force for the development of a society, building its culture, ensuring its sustainable development. Of course, this should be facilitated by engagement and support from the state, business, civil society institutions, based on the triple win principle, when any mutual beneficial cooperation between two sides, win-win, benefits to the third side, win. What have been said is reflected in the book that has been recently published by Almaty and dedicated to the 30th anniversary of independence of Kazakhstan. The goal of the book is to rethink the model of modern universities, contributing to their transformation, responsibility, and impact, and development perspectives. It serves as a manual for educators in Kazakhstan. The book is published in Russian to cover readers from Kazakhstan and minor Eurasia, and is to be published in English by June 2022, so that it can be presented during the upcoming PRME events in Davos and New York City. The book itself is the example of proactivity and a responsible practice by management educators. Joining forces in making education meaningful and impactful serves the idea of reinventing the university model for the benefit of society. That kind of synergy can be provided via PRME chapters activities. Even a very small case in one country can become a huge success in another. For example, this summer, Russian Association of Business Education is launching the Eurasian Summer School for faculty in Sochi, Russia. Its central topic will be the meta competencies, which include social responsibility. Almaty, as the implementer, is inviting you and all PRME chapters, if you have any research and expertise in that area. Your contribution will add value to this event. The role of each of the 17 PRME chapters is to gather the experience of signatories from different countries and track their trends based on the analysis made. The PRME chapters should be making a meaningful progress based on the mutually beneficial exchange of best practices, research collaborations, and joint activities. The role of PRME today is to monitor the progress, measure the impact made by its signatories across the world, and summarize it. For instance, by generating a general PRME report to the world public. Inviting the international ranking and accreditation agencies to contribute is indeed of great importance. We can suggest that they consider introducing a new indicator called active PRME signatory status. That way, all institutions willing to be ranked or accredited would have to embed PRME in their activities. Last year, our PRME task force in Almaty has analyzed the methodology and criteria of major accreditations, such as Triple Crown, IQA CEEMAN, BGA, Accreditation Council for Entrepreneurial Engaged Universities, and QS and Time Education rankings. We saw that all of them require institutions to have a clear understanding of its role and responsibility, including in addressing the UN Sustainable Development Goals. But there was limited direct mentioning of the PRME. Almaty has been an active PRME signatory since 2009, regularly participating in its activities and reporting on its progress. As a PRME board member coming from a very dynamic region, I want to disseminate the principle across the region. We have evaluated 21 signatories from 7 countries for our region, and we saw the opportunity to engage non-communicated and inactive signatories, help each other in achieving common goals, sharing our experience. That is why ALMAYU has recently initiated the creation of the chapter Eurasia. As of today, despite the pandemic, we have signatories from 6 countries who joined this effort in aspiration to promote the PRME in the region and inviting colleges and students from other universities to contribute. We are enthusiastic that the new chapter increases the engagement of emerging countries in Eurasia into PRME and make impact regionally in building responsibility framework and advancing responsible practice. Taking this opportunity, I kindly invite you to contribute to the development of this new chapter Eurasia. I also invite you to join ALMAYU in the production of the earlier mentioned book in English. Your insights and ideas are very welcome. Looking forward to see you in person in Sochi this summer for Eurasia Summer School for Faculty. I wish you all to be healthy, strong, and ambitious as a tiger according to the Oriental calendar, and have a very fruitful 2022.
Thank you very much. We were very tolerant to our friend from Kazakhstan, but we couldn't do anything else. And so I thank him very much and wish him all the best on behalf of all of us. And now I would like to give the floor to Evgeniya Pashkevich, because she is here written that you have, Evgeniya, 4 minutes. We have all together still, let me say, 8 minutes. So if you really took 4 minutes like it's written, then we can still have a little discussion, a little one. Please. Please.
Yes, thank you, Danica. I will try to be very brief because some of the things I plan to say have already been said, actually, so I will not be repeating that. Actually, the main thing I wanted to say is that for the students of business school, it is important not just to give them some knowledge in this area. It's very important to actually influence and change their mindset. As numerous research has shown, the mindset of students of business schools and economics majors is a little bit different from that of students in arts, for example, and science. And, I can't say that it's bad or good, but this is what it is. And business students mostly study to reach a clear goal of a well-paid future career. This is reflected, for example, in the ranking methodology, even of Financial Times. The personal income growth is the main factor. It's the factor that has the biggest weight in the methodology of evaluating the programs. Hopefully this will change. Research has shown that business students tend to act less pro-socially, not so much in the public interest. A fun fact, there is more cheating going on among undergraduates in economics and business majors compared to other majors. So the bottom line of this is that in the business schools, we need to do a little bit more than maybe, in other disciplines to change the mindset of the students to make sure that it is changed towards sustainability and responsibility. And doing this through just standalone courses, theoretical courses, it's not really possible. So schools have to have a comprehensive approach. We need to talk about SDGs, sustainability, and responsibility in all courses, as Goran rightly mentioned, that I agree completely. We make sure that all business courses at our school, in one way or another, touch upon this. And the other important thing, of course, is action learning. So students have to get in touch with the real world. They have to look at what social problems exist. I will just give one example that I always give. We have a social project for undergraduate students when they have work with homeless people, when they have to work in child hospitals, when they have to go out there and see, from very often they've grown in very sheltered environment at home. They have to go out there and see that real problems exist, that there are poor people, there are vulnerable people that need help. This really has been an eye-opener for many of our students, and they very often mention this when they talk about the schools. So I will stop here to give us 5 minutes to talk about, whatever we still can talk about. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was great. I would like to continue. You were talking about ranking. I suggest that John is continuing and saying some words about accreditation, because he wanted to add something about accreditation.
Thank you, Danica. Yes, I just thought, building on what Matthias had pointed out, I thought it would be useful to remind ourselves and the audience that the accreditation standards, as Matthias pointed out, has come a long way, but that those are typically applied through self-assessment reports and peer reviews, but that it's done in a way which reflects the current debate and context of that particular institution or region. This means that they have the potential of being an instrument for incremental development, which I would argue is not sufficient. But more importantly, they could also be a way or a lever for more radical transformation, which is clearly what is needed today. So, when EFMD introduced the ERS standards, and more recently AASCB, their new standards in 2020, we've seen an increased emphasis on, societal impact. And those accrediting bodies are now seeking from their members that are looking to achieve accreditation, that they identify which areas they're going to make a positive contribution to show how it's aligned to their mission and their expected outcomes, to demonstrate that commitment in their curriculum, in their scholarship, in their engagement, etc. So, I would urge us to think of, this agenda of sustainability and responsibility as a flip side to the quality agenda, which is what the major accreditation bodies already bring. Maybe just adding on to that, the positive impact rating, which Matthias is closely involved in, and which the GRLI in some respect helped catalyze when we asked, what if business school rankings measured the positive impact in society? I think it's a very good development. However, we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that, again, it's context sensitive. And so, in other words, it needs to reflect that which is most important to a particular institution or region when being applied. So I just wanted to add that at that point. Thanks.
Thank you. I could also say that in CEEMAN, we have the same, we are from all the beginning in CEEMAN looking for this, how to make schools more relevant for the society. In the beginning, in any case, the management schools started to appear in our part of the world, 30 years ago, almost 30 years ago, because the countries were needing us for their, to support the reform processes. So we in fact were born out of this need of the society. But I think that in this manifesto, which we published, we were making a breakthrough because, we said management education has to be excellent and relevant. And nobody who is only excellent and having certain number of PhD and I don't know what, number of books, number of tables, number of, etc., they should really be relevant. And I'm very happy with this new ranking. I don't know how much you know about this WURI, World University Real Impact ranking. They are now for the 3rd year existing, and I see that they are not talking about how much you earn, your graduates earn, but they really talk about, which impact you are making in different fields, ethics, entrepreneurship, etc., etc. I think that we had in our speeches, in your speech especially, you were talking about, I would like to draw some conclusions here. I think that for me it was very interesting what we heard about self, others, and we from John North, because you know, and about prime, you know, like prime is a set of principles. I think also that prime, we should call it a movement. Then we heard about action, and I think that it should be called movement, that it should bring to responsible global action, and this action again in the movement. So it should be such an interwoven, or how do you call that in a good English, you know. I think that if we help to prime to continue to be a movement and to continue to be action-oriented, and having a kind of impact on all of these ranking and accreditations with their, you know, set of principles, I think that this would be something really great. And I would also say that we should this, you know, that to ask ourselves often, one thing I would like to say first, action for changes through education. I think that this is something very important statement, and I think that we should really consider prime as the main, you know, leading force and support it from all sides, and also, but you know, also reminded on the responsibility, on the global responsibility to make us all better. This I would really have as a big wish. And let me see what I want to say still. I think that schools are not, that if you ask us, we are not all really, you know, ready to cope with all the challenges we have in the society, and that we should work more, and that we should be more connected with the business and help to business to, you know, to enlarge their, I should not say mind, but you know what I mean, to enlarge their knowledge also how to become more sustainable and all that, because many businesses would like to be, but they don't know how. And here the sun is shining in my eyes, so I can't help, which is beautiful, of course. So here I think that business and society and the schools, and all together, we should work more to build a better world. This would be my conclusion, and if you still have some, you know, possibility, we are still online, you know, please help me to add something.
Thank you, Danica, very much for the great moderation about